close the door.
You like to introduce?
Yeah. Sure, I got it. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right. Hello, everyone. Well, you've seen me just a few minutes ago, but some new faces, and thanks for being here. For part of our Wednesday concert, thanks again to the radio station for helping us spread the word of our concerts. And please, invite your friends. We still have a handful more in the remainder of the semester, as you can see on the back. Today, continuing with our theme of music and politics, or music for national identity, of last week of the national anthems. So today you're going to be hearing some music that falls more into the protest music category. A number of the songs that these fine musicians will play for you do not necessarily fall into that category. There's a little bit of historical information listed under two of the songs, and I know Steve is going to talk a little bit, or the others as well, about the musical, how the music that's being written can work in a political way, or a sort of subversive way. I'm gonna leave that to him. But a couple of these songs, the first one, Joe Worker, is for my class, or for those not, this is sort of a more overt political song. You will hear in the lyrics that it's very clearly about a political issue. The second piece, political song, A Night in Tunisia, you're just going to hear an instrumental version of it. It's often performed as an instrumental, but sometimes with words. And the words, I printed on the back what the words are. And as you look at them, you might see that they're not particularly political in any sense. But if you read the description under the piece, you'll sort of understand why. And we can talk more about that at the end of the concert. So, without further ado, I'm really happy to bring back my friends Christian and Steve, and happy to meet Al very much, who's their guest artist today. These are, as you will hear in a second, amazing musicians. You're in for a treat. So please welcome them to our concert series.
Thank you. First song we're going to do is Europa by Santana, written by Santana and Tom Coster. And I always like to figure out why a song was written, because a lot of instrumentals you go, well, okay, it's an instrumental, there's no lyrics, what does the purpose of this song mean? What was the inspiration? So anybody might have an idea what Europa might be about? Anybody got a guess? Speak out. Nothing? Huh? Nobody? Okay. Well, when I first saw it, I thought, well, okay, it must be about Europe, right? Europia. But actually, it was about, Santana said there was this girl he knew that they were in Europe at one time, but she was on a bad mushroom trip, and basically he helped her get over the mushroom trip, and she wound up coming back to normal. So I go, well, that's kind of juxtaposition to what the song, Europa, why is that? Also, Europa is a Greek mythology about, in that essence too, but basically it was just about bringing somebody back to normalcy during a bad trip. This is going to feature Al, it's a ballad, and go ahead, Al. Latin rhythms, and he had a lot of Latin percussion, and mixed it in with rock, so it created a whole new style called Latin rock. And he was kind of the forefather of that. So, anyway, our next song is called Pent Up House. Anybody might think what this song is about? What is one Pent Up House? Does anybody have an idea what that might mean? You guys aren't very talkative. Yes, sir.
It seems
ma'am,
like
I'm sorry.
a penthouse, but
Yeah.
it's probably not about a penthouse.
That's what I thought. I thought pent up house meant, oh, this guy's in the big joint, right? He's in a penitentiary in the big house. But no, it actually is about a high-rise penthouse apartment. And again, so he, that's how he designed it again, but spurred that on, he just decided to write a song. So this is kind of an up-tempo swing, and it's got some interesting harmonies to it, kind of you would call dissonant. Anyway, here we go. One, two, 3, 4.
Test, 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 test. There we go. There we go. I think that'll be good. I hope so. Close the lid for this song.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to share this song with you, Joe Worker. I got introduced to Mark Blitzstein when I was in grad school. Interesting composer, character. He was sort of in the same world, musical world, as Aaron Copland, who we've talked about, Leonard Bernstein. When Leonard Bernstein was first starting out as a conductor of the New York Phil, he and Mark Blitzstein were really good friends. He premiered some of his work. Roy Harris was another American composer that was sort of featured in this group. And Blitzstein was working on an opera that was going to be premiered at the Metropolitan Opera in New York, and it was based on the Sacco and Vanzetti trial. The trial of these two Italian immigrants who were accused of communism back in the early part of the 20th century. He was writing an opera about them. So he was always involved in writing about political ideas and music. And this song, Joe Worker, is from a musical called Cradle Will Rock. If it's something you're interested in, you want to do the deep dive. They made a movie a handful of years ago about this story. Probably the most famous story from it is that this was a musical that was written during the Depression when the government, the Federal Works Project, had given out a lot of money to artists across the country, musicians and visual artists and so on. And, for instance, a lot of the murals you might see in our post offices were created by artists during the Depression to help give them work. So this piece was, Blitzstein received money to write this musical, and it turned out to be a musical about corruption and all the problems with government and all this kind of thing. So when they found out, it was famously directed by Orson Welles, who was a very famous actor, and John Houseman was the producer of it and also very famous in the theatrical world. The night that the show was supposed to open in this small theater, the producers, or the powers that be, got word that it was a political musical and they shut it down. They closed it down on opening night. So, undeterred, they quickly, Orson Welles and others quickly found another available theater, some 15 or 20 blocks north in Manhattan, and they invited the whole audience to follow the cast, and they marched up Broadway with banners and gathering people along the way, and they all ended up in this theater. They filled it with some 500 or 600 people, and the only other hitch was that this was a union house, and a number of the actors in the production were not union members, so they could not be on stage. They couldn't legally. So what did they do? Blitzstein was a member of the union, so he sat on stage playing an upright piano, and he played through the entire score, and when it got time for the singers' parts, they stood up in their places in the audience, and they sang the whole show from their seats in the audience. So it was an amazing thing. There's an article in the New York Times about it. It's something, if you want to do a deep dive into it, it's pretty interesting. So, as a proud union member, a member of Actors Equity and SAG-AFTRA and AGMA, and I don't know even how many others there are, I was drawn to these kinds of songs. So this one falls into the overt category. It's obvious, entitled Joe Worker. That's sort of what it's going to be about. Listen, here's a story. Not much fun and not much glory. Low class, low down. The thing you never care to see until there is a showdown. Here it is. I'll make it snappy. Are you ready? Everybody happy. Joe Worker gets gypped for no good reason, just gypped. From the start until the finish comes, they feed him out of garbage cans, they breed him in the slums. Joe Worker will go to shops where stuff is on show. He'll look at the meat, he'll look at the bread, and too little to eat sort of goes to the head. One big question inside breakers? How many toiling and ailing, dying, piled up bodies? Brother, does it take to make you wise? Joe Worker just drops right at his working, he drops. Weary, weary, tired to the core. And then if he drops out of sight, there's always plenty more. Joe Worker must know that somebody's got him in tow. But what is the good for just one to be clear? Oh, it takes a lot of Joes to make a sound you can hear. One big question inside me cries, how many frame-ups, how many shakedowns, lockouts, sellouts, how many times machine guns tell the same old story? Brother, does it take to make you wise?
Next couple songs we're gonna do kind of a mashup of two Latin songs. One's called Southern Samba, and the other one's called The Night in Tunisia. And going along with the theme that Christian was talking about, this basically was kind of a protest song in two ways. First, the quote was, "The night in Tunisia represents a dream of freedom and identity of African Americans." It also was a breakthrough in musical styles because up to this point, their big band was a lot of jazz, big orchestra type of situation. This brought in small ensembles, which brought in the modern jazz era and bebop. And so it was more smaller groups with extended solos and a little more out-of-the-box kind of tunes. The Night in Tunisia basically has two different types of styles. It does have an Afro-Cuban type of rhythm to it. And then later on, it'll go into a swing. So it goes back and forth between those two rhythms as the song proceeds. But the first song, Southern Samba, is just a nice, easy samba. All right. 1, 2, 1, 2. Again, the reason why this song was written by Clifford Brown was it's for his wife, who was named Luna, or LaRue, I'm sorry, LaRue. So, there's your connection. One, two, 1, 2, 3.
Answer a question or two. Anyone have any burning questions off the top of your head to ask the musicians? Yes, Allison.
Does it feel different to like play protest songs versus?
Well, probably did back in the 60s when I was a young guy, but no, you know, what I look for as a composer is to give the true meaning expressively to that composition. It's like playing his song. I mean, that was kind of out of the box what I normally do. I mean, I've done show tunes and different things, but you know, it's a whole different emotion. And so I'm following Christian on that because he's the character of that. He's portraying that character of that composition. So at that point, as a musician, I need to back that emotion up.
But we should be playing it with anger.
Well, can I put that question out to all of you? Have you all participated in political events, playing your instruments? Have you written music for them that's specifically for that?
Not really.
Nope. No Bob Dylan tunes on the guitar?
No.
Nope.
Can't think of any offhand.
There's time.
I'm sure there are.
Yes, there's some questions.
Yeah.
So, kind of going off that question, given the current political climate that we're in, if each of you were to create a piece, what would you want what elements would you want it to include, and what would you hope our audience would get from that? And you too, Christian.
Well, I'm not a lyricist, but I guess it's funny you mentioned because I just was working with an artist client that was going to get a song out before the election. And, you know, the lyrics were pretty cutty, let's say. So again, I mean, it was kind of a country rock thing. So again, I just, you know, put what expertise I could producing the track and put the music to it. But again, that I don't write lyrics so much. I usually work with the lyricist. I can come up with ideas, but I'm not a poet, let's say.
Or even the style of music, what would each of you choose? You know, a lot of these pieces don't necessarily have, if they didn't have lyrics even.
For the political climate, I think that's tough because either a week from Tuesday, you're either gonna write the music to join all the anger out there, or you're gonna have to play music to soothe the tension. I think I would prefer in that case to be out there trying to soothe, because the next few weeks are difficult. Again, if I was asked to participate in a protest event, though the lyrics were not included, we would be choosing music, we would draw upon music from previous eras. And I think in jazz, you'd always draw upon the civil rights era. There was an enormous amount of protest music that African-American musicians were playing, so you would try to catch that emotion and represent it today. But I would also hope that we would also try and find something positive in the situation and at least calm the situation and not add, certainly not add violence.
You know, the folk era had a lot of protest songs, early
Yeah.
60s, and then when you got into the San Francisco scene, that was all of that. A lot of that was protest
Yeah.
against the establishment.
I guess the Vietnam War.
Yeah, the Vietnam War and drugs and dress codes and what have you. So, yeah, I think probably through every era, probably this era might even spur more because probably going to be anger regardless of what happens. I mean, it seems like we're more in a volatile environment.
What kind of music do you think would help bring people together? What?
That should be the goal of music. That
Should.
should be the goal, but you would hope that by people singing and dancing together, that it would unite people.
I think it's cultural. I mean, you're going to go down to, South LA and you're going to have a whole different type of music there than you would have in maybe Beverly Hills or in the middle of Kentucky, So I think that environment will produce its own stylistic approach to, what they want to say. Interesting subject, though. Anyone else? Any questions on?
Maybe for Al.
What?
Al,
Al?
yeah. I was reading that you use a digital synthesizer a lot. How has that changed the way you, create music or add to music?
It gives you a whole range of different sound styles that you can access that you usually can't when you're playing guitar. And that's a real big asset.
It's funny, when synthesizers first came out and sampling, it was funny because guitar players wanted to sound like a keyboard player and keyboard players wanted to sound like a guitar player. So you had all these poor representations of the sound, but it actually created a whole genre of music. Again, even though you'd say, well, as a musician, those sounds don't really sound like a guitar, but it didn't matter, just because it's like when the piano came in. The piano created a whole new pianoforte. That created a whole new stylistic of composition and music. Before then, you didn't have that. You had harpsichords and, anyway.
And the instrumentalists left out, started playing protest music.
Something different. I have one quick.
Other questions? Okay.
One last one.
Yep.
Al. The fret, I saw that you played the 4, 5, and 6 fret bass
Fretless.
and what, a fretless?
Fretless basses, yeah.
I've never heard of that before. Can you explain a little bit about that? What's the difference in sound?
Well, it's similar to an upright bass in that it doesn't have frets. The frets here determine the sound of the note exactly, but without the frets, you can go in between the notes.
Okay. So you
You do like sliding.
Sliding, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I
It
never
also
heard
changes
of it.
the tone of it too.
They've actually created a synthesizer. You can do that now, a keyboard.
Right?
Oh,
It's a touch thing, and if you press on it, or, it's a soft keyboard. It feels kind of funny.
Your
Because
rubber keys.
I have a rubber, but you actually can program glissandos, which is kind of cool again because I'm stuck. I can't bend that note. I can maybe shake the piano, but it's still not going to change. It's stuck. It's a hammer, it's percussive, and that's it. So technology is actually good and bad. It's always created some innovative new style of music just because of now we can do this where we couldn't before. So.
Okay.
Any other questions musically?
No, I have a question just for you. Why did you choose to use a microphone?
I just thought it would be sort of more in keeping with this style of music, since everything else was sort of amplified, and yeah, I guess for no other reason than that.
Okay.
How was the balance out there? Everything seemed, because this is kind of a
Yeah, it's very boomy in here.
very percussive, echoey, reverby room unless more people get in the seats.
Right.
Even then.
Yeah, we'll have a choir next week.
That's cool.
Okay, well, if there aren't any other questions, let's say thank you one more time.